Executive MBA, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about that today. And by all means, and I'll say this at the end, if you do want to have a question and answers, or if you want to have a chat with me after the webinar, please feel free to reach out on it. So just a few slides, tell you a little bit about us basically here in DCU Business School. So hopefully you can see my screen here. Probably first and foremost, and I'm going to start at the very bottom of the screen as you see it here. DCU, and one of our, I suppose, biggest selling points is we're in the top 1% of business schools across the world. And we're what's known as triple accredited. And so just for you guys if you're sitting looking at my screen, the three accreditations that are, I suppose, are the most prominent for us are AACSB, the EMBA, which is the one very much associated with the MBA, and our most recent one is EQUIS, is on the right-hand side. So which fundamentally puts us into as I said, the top 1% of business schools across the world. We also have another one, which is one coming out of the UK, as a small business charter. It shows our emphasis and engagement with small businesses right across the island of Ireland. A little bit about some of you I know are graduates of DCU, so you know about DCU. You, I suppose, have been here and been on our campus. But just to tell you a little bit more about it, the business school itself is 3,300 students. 2,500 of them, give or take, are undergrads, but 750 postgrads and 68 PhDs, 60 nationalities, 19,000 graduates, and 85 full-time faculty. 3 research centres. I come from one of those research centres, and again, if you join the programme, I work with family firms. So give or take 64% of our firms on the island of Ireland are family firms. I specifically work with next generation family business leaders. So if you come from a family business, you work from a family business, hopefully I can help you with growing and scaling the business itself. So the purpose of today, I'm going to introduce my colleague, Dr. John McMacken. John's going to talk to us about the new curriculum that's been integrated into the business school here. And then I'm going to, after that, call on my colleague, Professor Patrick Flood, to tell us about his module in particular. And then at the end, we've got 2 recent graduates who are going to share their experience of the Executive MBA. So, John, I might hand over to you, please, if you could tell us a little bit about the new curriculum.
Thanks very much, Eric. Yeah, and yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. And yeah, so I'm the outgoing chair, and so over the past couple of years, we've had 2 significant developments. One is the reaccreditation by EMBA recently, which Eric referred to. So that ensures that your your degree is recognized globally, and that combined with our other accreditations means that it's an elite degree, really, from an elite, what's perceived as an elite business school, one of the top 1% of the world. So that was one of the big things we were involved with. The second major event that recent graduates would be aware of is that we were in the process for the last 2 years of undertaking what's called a curriculum review. So we basically practice what we preach around the renewal of your strategic offering in the context of changing customer needs. And so we, with that in mind, the school, including a full school meeting to start it off, which is kind of a rare enough event, and to have one dedicated to a single program was kind of unique. So the importance of the MBA to the business school is reflected in that, and that process took the bones of a year on and off, and reviewed all of the program in terms of the learning outcomes we wanted to achieve, and the process by which we deliver on those. And so what's in front of you now is the revised curriculum structure. And if you're not recently involved in academia, you may, the unit of currency, I suppose, is credits. And so an MBA program requires 90 credits. And in the previous structure, as is typical in undergraduate programs, it would mostly have 5 credit modules. And one of the key changes that emerged from the curriculum review for the MBA is that that's not really fit for purpose, and that because we want to have a more integrative learning experience, so that we're not really, for the best example I can give is around economics, finance and accounting. As you can see on the kind of bottom lines there, that's now one single module of 15 credits. Previously it was 3 5-credit modules, each of which was assessed separately. But the philosophy underpinning this integration is that, you know, you don't, when you're in the workplace, you don't go in and have kind of economics day on Monday and finance day on Tuesday and accounting day on Wednesday. You have to integrate all these concepts into solving real business problems in real time. And so at the MBA, at the executive MBA level, we feel that it's more appropriate to learn in that way and for us to assess in that way. So for that module, three different professors from the three disciplines will get together. They will design the module, they will deliver the elements of it individually, and then they will collectively assess all of the learning, the application of that knowledge to solving real business problems. So that's one example. The theme around, so you can see the structure. I won't go through all of it because we'll be here for the day, but Eric, if you wouldn't mind moving forward
Yeah.
with the, yeah. So I think just to highlight some features of the revised curriculum, it's team teaching. So as I say, it's not an individual lecturer on their specialist topic. They're working with other faculty to deliver an integrative learning and convert that into via integrated assessment to the application of this knowledge to solve business problems. With that in mind, we don't have any examinations. The last of the exam, now this was a journey we were on, and we did away with the final examinations in this curriculum review. So everything is continuous assessment, a mixture of individual and team. And then we also moved to a hybrid delivery based on, all of this was based on feedback from current students, alumni, and also on looking at best practice in the marketplace. And in the current delivery, we're kind of 30% online. So in the aggregate, not 30% of every module by any means, but 30% of the program over the 2 years will be delivered online, with 70% face to face, and we feel that's kind of the sweet spot based on the information, the inputs we've had from our stakeholders. In terms of the delivery of the program, and this is information that is available online, but it's a 2-year program delivered one evening a week, Thursdays 2 to 9 p.m. And there are additionally 3 to 4 Saturday workshops per semester. So I suppose 6 to 8 Saturday workshops per year, per academic year. There are also 2 enterprise engagement international trip. Well, one international and one in Ireland. The international one is for a full week in year 2. The Ireland one is for 2 nights in year 1, and that's one of the purposes of that is to give people a chance to get to know each other in a way that you can't in the classroom. So I won't read through all of this information here. As I say, this is probably available to you anyway, but some of the modules run over the 2 years. So the core module around personal and ethical leadership runs over the 2 years, and importantly, the sustainability and strategic consultancy project also begins in year 1 and is completed at the end of year 2. That's the capstone project, and has a renewed and increased emphasis on sustainability, which is featured in a significant element of the module in semester 1, in fact. So that's a team-based assessment. And so that's the kind of general picture of the program. And I think, is that my last slide, Eric? And no, sorry, this is the last one. So sorry, yeah, I suppose we were kind of as part of the curriculum review, and with EMBA, recent renewal of our EMBA accreditation, we've been working hard at trying to articulate what our USP is, our unique selling point, our what makes us different, and this is kind of captured in this slide here. So our program emphasizes personal growth. Graduates say to us, and perhaps Tracy or Rob might comment on that, they say, I expected to learn about economics and strategy and finance, and I learned all that stuff, but what I learned most about was myself in the program, and I'm reading end of program reflections from our current class at the moment, and it's very clear that that's the case. And so that module runs right through the program. It's also linked closely to Patrick Flood's module and others, and And so, yeah, so that's a core theme and a clear differentiator. As I say, this application, so not just learning economics and finance as you would at undergraduate, but how the integration of these topics can be applied to solve complex business problems is a core and we believe a differentiating factor for us as well. Durable skills, not soft skills, but durable skills are embedded in the program as well, and are a significant element of many of the modules. So, for instance, you'd often have team presentations. You do a lot of writing and building and maintaining the positive relationships with others in the class, and indeed with visiting institutions and so forth. And then I suppose what we're hoping is that our graduates will demonstrate a shift in mindset to becoming more strategic, to have a greater focus on sustainability, to operate in a way that reflects an awareness of the global context in which they work. They have a growth mindset, and I won't go through them all. But these are things that we have embedded, may not have modules on directly, or you mightn't see it in the headlines, but these are the things that we believe makes this program unique. And I'm, at the recent review with EMBA, it's a full day of meetings with deans from 3 business schools around Europe to review, and I'm happy to say that they endorsed our new curriculum and acknowledged that we're pushing ahead of what other schools may be doing, and so it's great to have that endorsement of that, and to ensure that it reinforces our accreditation rather than posing any threat to it. So that's it, and happy to answer any questions you may have on the curriculum or related matters as we progress. Eric, will I hand back to you?
Yeah, thank you, John. Most helpful. One of the things that's been most insightful when we look at the triple accreditation is the feedback we get. One of the pieces of feedback is obviously what our graduates have done and are doing currently with their careers and professional development. But I've noticed the caliber and quality of the faculty that teach on the program. I'm delighted to have Professor Patrick Flood. Patrick has won numerous research awards and teaching awards, both here in Ireland, but right across the world, for his research around leadership, talent, and organization behavior. Patrick, thank you for joining us. I know it's extremely busy, but thank you for joining us this afternoon. You might just tell us a little bit about the program and your module in particular, please.
Sorry, I was muted there for some reason. Can I ask you to move to the next slide, Eric, please?
No problem.
Yep, that's brilliant. Thanks a million. Looking forward to seeing you guys in the classroom. That's the first thing I would say. And the teaching emphasis in the module that I teach with my colleague, Dr. Margaret Heffernan, is creating a conversation in the classroom, which leverages your experience, our experience, and our knowledge of organization behavior and human resource management. So it's extremely interactive, very participative. You do a lot of work and present your work during the module. It's spread over 2 different semesters. So we really get a rounded perspective, not just on yourself, but on your organization and how your company is performing. So it's the module that I teach is the first part of leading people for positive change. We look at 4 things within that module: leading self, leading teams, leading organizations, and leading change. So the first thing you'll be doing when you come to class is you'll be writing your life story, right? So before you run away in terror, this is a developmental exercise, and I have used this exercise literally all over the world, even in China. And some people are a little bit iffy at the beginning, but they all come back to me afterwards and say, do you know what? I'm glad I did that. So 100% of the people who've been asked to do this exercise have done it and have said that they enjoyed it in the main. And, it just allows you to think about who you are, where you came from, where you are, and where you're going in the future. and the people who have shaped you and shaped your life story. And it provides an early foundation for the work that John McMacken and Iseult Freeney do in the leadership module, which builds on that and says, okay, so you have your life story, but how does your life story link to your leadership style and your leadership philosophy? So it's a really nice exercise, and I know you'll enjoy it. Then we move on to look at some self-assessed motivation using the work interest scale. We have a look at your social networks to find out where you're positioned in terms of your networks. Are you an internally focused person or an externally focused person? Is that a good or a bad thing? Do you have the links down the organization, amongst your peers, and up to the C-suite? And we look at personality. And the more I teach and the more I come across our MBA students, the more I think personality is really a fundamental thing to understand in terms of yourself. Then we go on to look at leading teams. And for example, we look at Sir Alex Ferguson and Manchester United. We look at the Cambridge boat race. We look at some of the things that have happened in big companies like AstraZeneca, a little bit on board dynamics, and what transformational leadership is, and what it is that you need to do if you want to improve your transformational leadership. And we have a look at one approach, which is the Leading for Net Zero approach, which Robert is going to talk about when he comes to ESB. But in our case, we've written a paper on it, and it's based on the delivery of sustainability in Unilever over the last 15 years and where they are at the moment and going forward. And we look at Patagonia. Then we move on to look at organizations, leading organizations. And really here we're looking at building capability in the organization. And one of the core capabilities is, what is the bench strength of the people who work for you? How talented are they? How developed are they? And we look at the debate between A players and B players. A players are, of course, elite, but they're also sometimes very difficult to work with and have a lot of problems in working in teams. And we look at the B players and how can you work, how can you effectively combine through teamwork the A players and the B players so that you get maximum results. And then we move on to look at leading change. And we have a lot of fun because we look at power and politics here. And when we're looking at power and politics, of course, you can't get away from the 48 laws of power and all the Machiavellianist material, and you get to assess your own Machiavellianism. We look at culture. You will be looking at your own organization and assessing it, and we'll be looking at managing the change process, both in through models such as John Cotter's, but also a critical lens, which we're working on at the moment for a book. So, and we look at the future of work debate. So that is a Cook's tour of what it is we'll be doing. And, I hope you'll enjoy it. I know previous students have really enjoyed it, and I certainly will enjoy working with you when you come on campus.
Thanks, Patrick. Really appreciate that. I know hopefully you can stay around for some of that. I know
Sure.
people have questions. And as I said before, if you've got a question you want to reach out, just by all means put it into the chat, or you can private message me and I'll raise it at the Q&A at the end. I'm delighted now to introduce two of our very recent graduates. Dr. Tracy Monson is CEO of the Doors of Charity, Child and Family Services, and Robert Arthur is PR6 Resilient Infrastructure Technical Lead at ESB Networks. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time this lunchtime to join us. I'm going to stop sharing now just to so I'm going to come to you, Tracy, first. Probably first and foremost, congratulations, probably is in order. You've got through the 2-year marathon of the Executive MBA. I think you've just recently submitted your strategic consulting project. So first, well done on that.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So I just want to ask you, like probably many people on the call, you have a choice and you have a decision as to when and where to pursue an executive MBA. So you might just tell us a little bit why you decided to do an executive MBA, please.
Sure, and thanks so much, Eric, for the opportunity. Because I think it's really important for prospective students to hear about how great the MBA actually is and the impact it's had. So for me, I had, I suppose, recently been appointed as chief executive of my organization, and then COVID hit. So all bets were off in terms of me, I suppose, having to navigate that crucible of leadership, as I now understand it to be from Patrick and John's modules. So coming out of COVID, I really thought then around what do I need? What skills do I need to be able to navigate my organization into the future, but to support the staff that I have, and to get us out of this and to continue on our path in terms of purpose. So the reason I did it was really to continue to add value to the organization. I felt I didn't have the skills that I needed to do that. I suppose I'm a psychotherapist, I have a PhD, so in terms of the academic and, you know, the specialist skills was fine, but it was the business piece and knowing what I needed to do to navigate that storm and the sustainability of the organization into the future was what I needed to really focus on. So for me, when I was looking then at the different courses, DCU just stood out to me honestly for the personal and ethical leadership module throughout the 2 years. So my organization is a not-for-profit, we're a charity. What I really wanted to ensure was that when I was leading this organization, that it was very much embedded in our purpose and that I was in, I suppose, the best possible shape as a leader to be able to drive the organization into the future. So for me, the personal leadership piece core was amazing. I had done coaching in the past. Obviously, being a psychotherapist, I've been through therapy, never ends. But it was different. You know, leadership is completely different. Life story stuff that Patrick did at the beginning, it just sets the scene for everything in terms of what influences you and how that impacts you as a leader into the future. Obviously, practically DCU, my office is in Northwood in Santry, so it made perfect sense. I wanted something that was accessible and wasn't going to be done over like a couple of evenings. So it was a block of 2 to 9. Amazing, because it gives you a real immersion in the class. You get to know people, you get to connect with people. And I suppose the other thing for me was being in not-for-profit and being in this area all of my career. It's quite a closed space in terms of you're so stuck in fighting for funding and having to try and navigate things in a different way that you don't lift your head up to see how other businesses, how other sectors do it. So for me, knowing the alumni and knowing the kind of people that are on the course was just a winner in terms of having people from IT, from marketing, from banking, from entrepreneurship, just that range of skills and networks then that I could connect with to help me to continue to add value to the role. So I suppose that was the rationale for picking DCU.
Tracy, you mentioned there about the diversity of, I know you're a psychotherapist, so people from very different backgrounds, which is part of the experience. As much as you learn from faculty like John and Patrick, there's a big learning from the kind of peer aspect to it. You might talk to us a little bit about that, the learnings among the class as such.
For sure, Eric. I mean, first day you walk in, you have your imposter syndrome of why am I here? You hear the amazing experiences and the amazing expertise of everybody else. And you think, okay, I don't really have a place here. This isn't for me at all. But when you're in your teams, when you get to meet people, when you're having the chat, when you're working on your projects and your assignments, having the connection, the different perspectives of somebody who's coming from a banking perspective, of somebody who is in IT or, you know, as I said, entrepreneurs, it just adds huge value. You think about things in a completely different way and it challenges you because I suppose I'm constantly thinking about, you know, intrinsic motivation, how you motivate people through intrinsic motivation, because we can't give bonuses. where it's listening to others around, you know, bonuses, and even our HR module around that element of it, it makes you think about it differently. It makes you think about your challenge in a different way, and that there are other ways to do things that aren't always the way you've always done them. So I found that extremely helpful, and just learned a huge amount, and have future connections and networks now from all of the class and the faculty moving forward.
One of the big attractions to doing an executive MBA is obviously on site here in DCU campus, but the opportunity to travel, and to travel as a cohort, to go abroad, to spend time abroad with people, and to learn from different cultures, different contexts. You did an international visit. You might tell us a little bit about that experience.
We did. We were so privileged to have an opportunity to go to New York for a week, and it was just absolutely mind-blowing. Firstly, I'd never been, so just even arriving and seeing all the skyscrapers was just amazing, and walking around with your head up all the time. Have to get used to that. But I mean, what had been set up for us in terms of visits was just amazing, you know, and also, I suppose, drawing from previous alumni that had facilitated those visits was just fantastic. So, I mean, we went to the New York Stock Exchange. You know, we just got to experience so much in terms of Wall Street, and you know, different businesses, digital transformation, just Danone, just a whole different experience in terms of international thinking, challenges, the markets. We went to CRH, which was also amazing. So we did all the visits, and it was really busy, and it was amazing. But more than that, was really around us having time together as a group. And John and Nuala were with us, which was fantastic. And we all kind of got a bit outside our comfort zone, and, you know, just had the chats and connected. And you really got to spend time with people in a completely different setting. So it was absolutely amazing. And again, a once in a lifetime experience, and made me think about things differently in terms of, why couldn't we do it this way in my organization? You know, why couldn't we put a structure like that in place? Why do we have to wait, you know, or why do we keep doing things the way we always do them? So it was just brilliant, great exposure, and a huge pull. I think a really amazing once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we're probably a lot of the time we're guilty of, is we work in the business, we don't work on the business. So having the opportunity to be abroad, and to kind of almost have this kind of trusted environment where you can bounce things off people and get their perspectives is really special. Yeah. So Tracy, thank you. I'm going to come back to you in a few minutes, if that's okay. And
Sure.
hopefully you can stay around. I'm sure people have a lot of questions, and they might want to ask you around things like work-life balance and all those kind of questions. So I'm going to come back to you in a few minutes. Robert Arter, Robert, I hope you're here with us. Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to join us this lunchtime.
No problem. Hi, Eric.
How are you doing? So I probably have the similar questions for you, Robert, if that's okay. Again, people have choice on the webinar. You might tell us a little bit about your decision why to do the Executive MBA.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So from my perspective, I work in a large organization in ESB Networks. You know, that's a regulated section of ESB. I had the opportunity to be sponsored by the company first off, to go for it. But the most important decision really was the work-life balance. So I'd agreed with my wife, Pamela, that it was a good time to go for the MBA. And once I had the work-life balance I felt to commit the time to it, I went ahead and took that choice. And the company supporting me was in a big way. Made a big decision on too, because I still miss the Thursdays from 2 to 9, where we'd have a lot of good open discussion and banter. I had to pull back the playful side of me. I'd always be joking and laughing at my own jokes, I was told by a couple of my colleagues. But once we got past that, as Tracy referred to it, I'd nearly refer to it as group therapy, Tracy, to refer to something in your own expertise area. It was really good, open, honest discussion where you learn a lot from a lot of people with different backgrounds. I really enjoyed that part of it, Eric. Yeah.
Tell us about the experience on the program. I know you mentioned open, honest discussion. So you cover a lot in a 2-year period. Tell us about some of kind of the highlights of the 2 years that stand out for you.
Yeah, so I know it's a slightly revised curriculum, but I saw a lot of some commonality there from my experience with Professor Flood, with Patrick. I like the initial experience in semester one, where we would have gone through, it was organizational behavior and change with Patrick, but I heard him speaking to a lot of the different models and experiences. So that particular module I liked because you had to come, Patrick expected you to come prepared and have pre-read material. And then once you did put that work in beforehand, I felt you got a good experience from it. So I would have, I think Patrick referred to it there, Cotter's change model, or he'd correct me there. I don't think it's exactly right, but I've applied some of those strategic models to what I'm working with now in ESB. Tracy and yourself discussed it there. Sometimes you don't look at changing the business, you're working in the business, and it's trying to convince people within my organization. I find I'm better equipped to do that now on gradual step change, where some people want to make a significant move that sometimes won't get the buy-in. I feel that was a good experience. Ones that took me out of my comfort zone, one would be the HR module, managing people with Professor Claire Gubbins. You know, there was a lot on meta-analysis, and not to jump to a conclusion on some topic because of, let's say, your initial knowledge or beliefs on specific areas. So we're talking there at the start about sustainability and net zero. It's always important in that aspect, particularly from where I'm working from, that if ESB is relying on some sort of evidence, that I can question that in the area I'm in at the moment. We're looking out to 2030 on what we're going to do as a network, and to make sure people don't assume something is correct, to question those things. I found that module very challenging, but I learned a lot in it. And then, yeah, just back to it again, the group projects, I felt you learned from a lot of other people from different backgrounds, but and different stages in their career also. But I felt at the end of it, you found that most people wanted to learn and develop. So there was a commonality there. But yeah.
One thing I'd say, Robert, is probably like anything in life. I think everybody included on the call, we're all busy people. And I don't think there's ever a good time to do further study in a bizarre way. Because people ask me about doing a master's or a PhD. My suggestion for people, if it's to do an MBA, a master's, is if you have the inclination, if you have the itch, do it. Go on and do it. There's never a right time. But you did, one of the early things you said was about work-life balance. Tell us a bit about how, I know your wife and your family for us all is a big part of this 2-year journey.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the work-life balance and managing this while also having a professional role and career.
Yeah, it's a good question, Eric, because I was going to touch on it later. I didn't get the chance if you didn't ask me, but for me, that was a big part of it. And John McMacken had an open day, our opening day in the MBA. I remember one of the previous, someone, I think they graduated or they were either on the MBA representative body, came in and spoke, and time management was a big part of it. So from my perspective, because I had 3 young kids, I tended to use the midweek days to suit me. There was never going to be a perfect time for me to do the MBA, but I knew, because I had the opportunity to do it. I think when my wife Pamela said yes, there was a dust cloud, and I'd flown off to sign the forms and go. I just decided there and then I was doing it. That didn't mean that I had free time the whole way through. So if I tried to study over the weekends, it may have become a bit too much. But I found that Monday to Wednesday, I could do the relevant work and be ready for Thursday. This is just me personally. Thursday suited me to stay on after in the library if I felt there was something I wanted to get to before the weekend came upon me. So that worked for me. I know other colleagues would have had the opportunity to work weekends or study on weekends. But I suppose in year 2, and another thing that was said to us at the start, John would have said, everybody probably, wants to go for that distinction. But at the end of it, most people say it's not the distinction they got from it, it's the learning and the experience they got from other colleagues. And that's what happened to me in the end. But at the start, I was looking at John saying, yeah, you're saying that about everybody else, but I'm getting the distinction. So in year 2, we had a surprise. So we had a 4th child, Sam, who's 1 year old now, but Sam arrived in May of 2022. Sorry, 2023. Did I get that right? And I was obviously doing my capstone project for John. And I think it was the last day of my paternity leave at 3 a.m, I was finishing my capstone project. There was a baby I knew was going to wake up. There was work I had to go back and do. So I finally, on the last module, accepted that a distinction wasn't achievable, and I had a laugh with John after it. He saw in my capstone, you could see the last few pages I was trailing off. I'd got it finished. I got a good capstone finished. I was proud of it, but it's, on a serious note, it's not. I definitely found it's not about getting the distinction. It's the friends and colleagues, Tracy touched on it, that you can go to, your alumni, you can make contact with, people I'd still keep in touch with, people I'd be proud of who've done well in their own careers. You know, I think that's the main thing I got from the MBA. Yeah.
So it's a busy household.
It is. It is.
Just the one thing that Robert spoke about there is that you will do a consulting capstone module where you'll take a multinational or an indigenous Irish business that have a challenge, and you will serve as a group of consultants to see how can we influence, strategic influence, typically reporting back to the board of the organization. So it's an incredible hands-on and very much applied experience where you take the courses like Robert and Tracy spoke about and apply it in a real world situation. Just final question, Rob, before we come to the Q&A, if that's okay. You tell us a bit about career progression and the influence of the MBA on career progression.
Yep. So, again, Tracy flagged something there that was common to me. There was an element of when I started of imposter syndrome where I wanted to do this so that I could feel confident that I could, I suppose, be strategic, get to a certain level in ESB to get a senior manager level. So when I came in, I felt I got the confidence on that to progress further in my career. I do feel there's a bit of a timeline on me because Professor Pamela Flood had done some research which suggests I should try and get that promotion within 18 months of finishing the MBA, or I won't get it. So I haven't got there yet, but I've rotated into another role where I've gone outside my comfort zone. I'm working on trying to secure funding for ESB networks from 2026 to 2030, which is it's a step change in what we have to do to meet our net zero targets. So I'm in that group, which is a lot more stakeholder management than the technical background I would have been in previously. So for me, it was trying to get to a senior manager level in a large organization, and also to have the confidence to look further afield if opportunity ever arose. So I feel I got that out of the MBA. Wouldn't necessarily have the promotion to back it up, but I feel I have the skill set to get there. Eric.
Thanks, Robert. Folks, we have about 5 to 6 minutes for Q&A. Probably one thing I should have said at the outset, which is great, we're recording this so we can share it with you at a later stage. I'm sure there's a lot of content we've covered within the last 45 minutes. So if there's anything you want to reflect on, we will share it back with you. So we have some, the panel have kindly stayed on. So if you have a question, you can, as I said, you can by all means put it into the chat if you want to unmute and ask the question. And we have about 5 or 6 minutes of questions. So we've covered a lot of content. So whether it's for Patrick or John or myself, or for Robert or Tracy, who kind of been there and done that, please feel free to ask a question at this point.